So we are now being recorded. And I'm going to take a moment to just tell everyone that it has been a really good summit. We've had speakers on Wednesday that talked about course embedded undergraduate research to begin to change the culture so that these things, these experiences are supported, for faculty to include them and to start talking about how to get this job done in a manner that doesn't drive us as faculty nuts, so that it's something we want to do and we're excited about doing it. Then yesterday we talked about funding undergraduate researchers, and there were 4 different speakers, one speaking that has a program in the College of Engineering that's college-wide, and another individual, Dr. Skilton from history, talked about really her individual journey, starting with just a little seed money from the mini grants and then growing up from there. And then also Todd Henry, who talked about that ever beloved paperwork, and myself sort of describing advance. And all of those sessions are on the advanced webpage as recordings, and you can see that. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our keynote speaker, who I'm very, very excited has agreed to join us today. And this is Dr. Megan Fegley from Binghamton University in New York. And they have a really robust program for undergraduate research there. And today she's going to tell us about that. And I am really excited. So with that, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I'm really excited to tell you about all of the CURE initiatives that we have running on our campus. So I know you had a session earlier in the week on cures, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page and know what a cure is. And so really the definition of a cure is that it's a course that it has these elements. So you're engaging students in the scientific process, you're emphasizing collaboration, you're examining topics that are important worldwide, outside of your classroom. It has discovery embedded within it. And I think that's sometimes where courses, that's really the difference between a course being an inquiry-based course or a CURE course, is that fact where students are exploring questions where the instructor doesn't even know the answer. And then integrating integration or iteration into the course is that 5th key element. Why do we do cures? We want to try to reach more students and increase the access that they have to research. Across the country, many students are getting research opportunities through independent study, one-on-one mentorship with faculty across campus. But with a CURE, we can have one instructor, one mentor that is guiding many students. And there's various techniques that we can use to make that happen in a smooth manner. And for the instructor, it's a way that they can explore new research avenues, build data sets. So it is a way that you can increase your research productivity. So that can be a benefit, a really great benefit to you. And then students that come out of these cures have some training in these research methods, as well as those specific techniques that they're using in those labs. And they may want to continue doing research with you beyond that CURE course. There's various goals of cures, and our program here at Binghamton has really hit on a lot of these. I'm not going to go through them all, but you know, our first-year research immersion program that I'm going to talk about has really helped us yield talented students. We've gotten them to come to Binghamton, and they tell us, we came to Binghamton because of the FRI program. And I'll touch on some of these throughout as well, but these are just some things, and I've already shared the slides with Sherry and Jessica, and so they can share them with you. But these are all things, all goals that you could have in mind with a cure or a sequence of cures. So I'll tell you a little bit about the timeline at Binghamton. So a lot of places, when I'm talking about cures, I've seen where a lot of places will start with one cure course here, one cure course there, one here. Well, here at Binghamton, we started with a full-blown 3-course sequence as one of the first cures on our campus. And we started that the first year research immersion program back in 2014. This happened because we had both administrative support and we had faculty support. And one of the key driving factors was a grant we had through the Howard Hughes Medical Institute to start a program like this. We had buy-in from faculty because our previous HHMI grant had paired up students, one student in physical science, one student in biology or life sciences, and they worked on a project. And the faculty saw that students who didn't have any background content knowledge, say in biology, could still do biology research. And it showed them that maybe first-year students could do research too. So we started with 90 students that first year. That first summer, we started our summer research immersion program, and that program we usually have about 20 students each summer, and I'm going to talk about that in more detail. By fall 2018, we reached our current capacity, which is 300 students that we enroll into our program each year. At that time, we also had a large biology cure start with 850 students participating in that each year. Then in 2019, we had a humanities and social science research cure sequence start called the Source Project. So it's a parallel program to FRI that is focused on humanities and social science research. Then in fall 2020, we started a Gen Chem cure, and that enrolls about 800 students every year. And then by this fall, the Source Project has doubled in size. So what you're going to hear me say is that the momentum that was created through the FRI program really funneled in and caused the push for these other programs and courses to start. And we also have a sprinkling of advanced level cures too across campus. So let me get into a little bit more about our FRI program. So we started in 2014. At this point, we've had over 1,200 students completely go through the FRI program. It's 3 semesters long, and it starts the very first semester they set foot on campus. We modeled it off of UT Austin's FRI program. They started all the way back in 2005. And the study that I have linked here, they used propensity score matching. And it showed that students who completed all 3 semesters of their FRI program were more likely than their non-FRI peers to earn a STEM degree and graduate within 6 years. And so we've continued, we've collaborated with Texas from day one. We've also collaborated with University of Maryland. They have a program called FIRE, which started in fall 2014 as well. So our 3 groups, we actually meet monthly to discuss challenges, new ideas. We've written grant proposals together and that sort of thing. But really, we were, with the FRI, we wanted to try to transform the STEM education experience for Binghamton students by giving them this early research experience. And we wanted to increase their interest in STEM. And we also wanted to improve their ability to meet those demands in the workforce once they graduated with their STEM degree. So we focus on that authentic research experience, but at the same time, we heavily focus on career readiness skills too. So they're in the lab doing their research, they're designing the experiments, they're making discoveries, and along the way, they're working in teams. That makes the program more manageable because the instructor is overseeing usually 5 different research projects at a time. But they're learning those team skills that are going to be important later on in life for them, and even in other coursework. We focus a lot on communication. They learn how to write scientifically. They learn how to present their research orally, and that sort of thing. So just to get a little bit more into the details of our program, we're on a 4-credit system at Binghamton, which would be equivalent to like a 3-credit course elsewhere. So the very first semester, we start with a seminar course that's 2 credits. It counts towards general education requirements. The focus, they work in teams, they dig into the scientific literature. We're trying to bring everyone up to the same page in this semester, and it's a nice transition semester. So they're learning how to read articles, they're learning out what's known about a topic, what's unknown, and they're really learning how to develop a research question. And it's like a pre-proposal. They're synthesizing data from multiple sources, and they're presenting it at a poster session at the end of the semester. Then the second semester, they get into their lab. They earn a lab gen ed. These courses are all within academic departments. So they have, like our chemistry related streams have, it's a chem course or a biology course or a psych course. So they're also earning credit towards major requirements, which we have found to be key for these students and to retain them in the program, because they're trying to fit so many different courses and get their degree completed. That has really been crucial. But they get into the lab, they learn techniques, they learn instrumentation, they develop a full research proposal, they start working on their research project, and then in the final semester, they are solely dedicated to conducting that research. And it fulfills a composition gen ed, which is a writing requirement here, and also major requirements, and they present that project at the end of the semester at a poster session. So every fall, we have a poster session with about 500 students presenting their research, because it's both the first semester students and the third semester students, because we do have an overlap there. So you may be wondering, why 3 semesters? Why not 2? Why not 4? We kind of landed on 3. If you think about learning a foreign language, you're usually not going to get too far with 1 semester. You may be able to recognize words on a piece of paper, but you may not be able to speak the language. It really takes multiple semesters to get proficient in a language, and we feel the same way about research. It's going to take time for them to appreciate and engage in STEM, learn about STEM career pathways. And so it is just as complex as learning a foreign language. This chart is from a review of cures that was published in 2014 that I think does a nice job of illustrating this complexity that I'm talking about. And it also provides some rationale for what students are experiencing in a sequence of cures. So on the left-hand side, you see some skills that students are gaining with their initial cure. So things like technical skills or project ownership. But at that point, they're not moving into some of the columns on the right-hand side yet. It's really taking those subsequent cures in order to move to the right-hand side, where they're learning how to persist in science. They're learning how to navigate the uncertainty, especially when you're working on a research project. There's a lot of failure involved along the way, and they learn how to overcome that, how to navigate that. And really, it takes them a little bit longer to get that deep into the research. So that's why we have focused on a 3-semester program for FRI. So when our students are placed into the FRI program at the beginning of their first year, we place them into a research stream. We have 10 of these research streams. Each one is very interdisciplinary in nature, so we'll have a variety of different majors. Each of them has a dedicated lab. So here's a couple pictures of a couple of our labs. We've been really lucky. In the beginning, we had startup funds and various grant funds. We were able to renovate many of these spaces and equip them with, honestly, equipment and instrumentation that was better than a lot of the equipment I used in graduate school. So these students are really working in state-of-the-art research labs. Each research stream is kind of overseen by 3 to 5 faculty collaborators. We also hire a dedicated instructor and professor for the research stream, and we call them research educators. We have a team of peer mentors that also are involved in research streams, and we have about 30 students in each stream. So those 30 students are together all 3 semesters. They're with their research educator all 3 semesters. It really is a community, and that has been a really important aspect of our program. Just to give you an idea of this interdisciplinary nature that I mentioned for our streams, I'm just going to go through a listing of our streams. We've got 6 that I would consider biological and health science related, so biomedical chemistry, community and global public health, ecological genetics, biofilms, biomedical anthropology, and neuroscience. And we have a lot of students who come in as pre-health interested. And so we have quite a few streams that align well with that. We have 4 more streams that I kind of grouped together in physical and applied sciences, biogeochemistry, environmental visualization with drones, which is actually our least popular stream for incoming students. I think they just don't get enough exposure during high school, but it's actually our stream that has been the most productive in terms of publications and presentations at conferences and that sort of thing. Clean energy and image and acoustics signals analysis. So most of these streams are students in our College of Arts and Science that are enrolled. We also, the clean energy and image and acoustics stream are students from our engineering school. So we kind of have 2 schools involved, but we ourselves are not an academic department. We, the FRI program is out of our provost office. So we're not tied to an academic department, which can create some challenges, but I want to talk a little bit about our multi-tiered mentoring approach for each research stream, because I think it really creates a richness for the students and gives them multiple mentors. So it's really the research educator that we hire that teaches all 3 of the courses within the stream. They lead the day-to-day operations of the lab. They are the primary mentor for all the students. They're experts in their discipline, the theme of the research stream. And so their recruitment, their training, support, evaluation, and professional development is so crucial to our program. And a lot of times we'll call them unicorns because they're sometimes hard to find. It's these individuals that are really interested in mentorship and research and teaching. They write these wonderful letters of recommendation too for our students because they get to know them so well. They just become such great mentors for our students. So they're overseeing all of the teams of researchers within their stream. We have undergraduate peer mentors that are students that have gone through FRI, and then they become mentors. I'll talk a little bit about them. The faculty stream collaborators are tenure track faculty. Their involvement is, it varies widely from stream to stream. Sometimes these faculty are collaborating on specific projects. So for example, one faculty collaborator may be collaborating with team 2 and meeting with them a couple times throughout the semester to give them feedback and advice. Some may be coming in to do guest lectures, and some have relatively little involvement, and that kind of fluctuates too, as over time. Many of the research educators have independent study students, and a lot of them are students who go through FRI and they want to continue that research project, so they continue working with the research educator. Some of our research educators have even taken on advising roles for graduate students on campus, and so sometimes those independent study students and graduate students also become mentors for some of the teams if their research aligns with what the teams of current students are doing. And sometimes those graduate students and independent study students are coming from the labs of the faculty collaborators. So it just creates this really rich network of individuals that the students have access to. I would regret not sharing my team of research educators because they are so crucial to the success of our program. They work so closely with the students, and also together we've really created this rich learning community. We meet weekly throughout the semester to talk about teaching pedagogy. We create shared materials that we use across the streams, like rubrics for grading, say research proposals or manuscripts or posters. And so it's a really strong team, and we all have the same goals in mind, that we want to mentor undergraduate students in research. A little bit about the peer mentors, because we call them sometimes our army of peer mentors, because we have so many students who want to give back to their FRI program. They felt so positively about their experience in FRI, and they want to be part of the team that is mentoring the next cohort of students. So we usually have 100 to 150 peer mentors every semester, and we only give them course credit. And that course credit counts for very little towards their degree. And they still are there in numbers, as you can see, but they also have said things like they want to encourage students pursuing research. They want to develop skills that they can put on their resume that they're going to use in the future. But they provide a ton of benefits to our program and our students. They help us create a even greater sense of community. They support students in terms of technical skills, training them on instrumentation, training them on protocols, help with scientific writing. Many times we'll have the peer mentors give students feedback before the research educators do so. And then many times they are emotional and personal support to the students. So we are dealing with a population of students that are on campus at college for the very first time. Some of them are having trouble transitioning to college. They can help direct them to appropriate offices on campus that can help them. They can be there to be, a motivator, a coach. They were just there, a year ago or 2 years ago. And so the students come to them with their concerns or, their problems, which can be a lot to bear. And then they also many times are assigned to certain teams, and they mentor that team based on their expertise from when they conducted research in the program. I wanted to mention a couple ways of how we assess students in our program, because these are courses, we have to give them grades, especially because they are fulfilling major and gen ed requirements. They have to be letter grades. We don't give any exams. It's like outlawed in our program. But we focus on things like teamwork skills. We use an online evaluation platform called CATME. Project management, we have them create Google Sites and Google Drives where they manage their projects. We focus a lot on scientific writing through their proposals, their manuscripts, their posters, oral communication. We have them do elevator talks. We have them do PowerPoint presentations, poster talks, technical skills, learning instrumentation and protocols, analyzing data, collecting data. So that's really what we focus on when we are giving our students grades. We also focus a lot on program assessment. Are we reaching the goals that we set out to in our program? Every semester, we have the students take an end of semester survey. We use questions from LCAS, which I'll talk about in a minute. Lopato's CURE survey, just general course evaluation questions. We have them write a reflection essay, and it's very open. We ask them to write about their professional and personal growth in the program. And we also heavily track them after they leave our program. We send them a survey every year. We have the research educators report back to us. We work with the alumni office, and we look at things like graduation rate and just overall experiences after FRI. So the LCAS survey from Corwin focuses on collaboration, discovery, and relevance and iteration, which are some of those features I mentioned at the beginning of my talk that distinguish CUREs from traditional lab courses. And in that article, they gave some reference data on a traditional lab course and a CURE lab course. And then in the colored bars, this is just an example of some of the data that we've collected. Our first, second, and third semester courses were achieving at least the level of the CURE reference data or higher. Then the CURE survey is looking at perceptions of student learning, nature of science, learning styles, and I'll give you a couple examples. So there's a cluster of questions in the CURE survey that talks about course elements. So I just pulled out a few. This is data from our students that finished the program last fall. So they were exiting at the end of the third semester. And the yellow and green are students who said that they had large or very large gains in these areas. And I'm sorry, this is small, but the first one's a project entirely of student design. Second one's reading primary scientific literature, writing a research proposal, analyzing data, presenting research results orally. And then there's another cluster of questions about benefits. These are things like clarification of a career path, tolerance for obstacles faced, understanding of the research process in your field, ethical conduct, self-confidence, learning to work independently, which is really important when you are leading 30 students through a research experience, is getting them to become independent. Just to give you some examples from the reflection essay, a lot of times what they're saying in the reflection essay is related to some of those questions from the CURE and the LCAS survey. So this specific quote that I took had the themes of analytical skills and impact beyond the program. So they talked about how they knew they were gaining skills that they could use in the future. That they had grown in terms of critical thinking skills. And they were really excited about the fact that they got the opportunity to design their experiments. Another example, this student talked about how the FRI course helped them figure out what their possible future career pathway may be. And here's a quote about ability to navigate uncertainty, which I think is really, really important in these research courses, because they do have to go through failure and learn how to go beyond that and what to do next in their research so they don't become completely roadblocked. And so the student really talks about, when something doesn't work the way that they thought it was, they're still learning something from that experience. A little bit about student outcomes. We have had students publish their data in peer-reviewed journal articles. They've gone to a lot of conferences, both regional and nationally. And I pulled some data for the group of students who graduated during this past academic year, and students who went completely through all 3 semesters of the program. So 50% of them continued doing research beyond FRI. 24 of them disseminated their research. So that's either presenting at a regional or national conference, or publishing their work in a peer-reviewed journal article. 93% of them obtained a STEM degree, which, wow. I think that is huge. And it was data that I shared with my team of research educators yesterday. And we were just ecstatic. Graduation rates, 4-year, 85%, 6-year, 96%. And our goal is to be above the university goals. The university goals are 73% for 4-year and 83% for 6-year. So we're surpassing that. And then the last piece of data is 46% securing employment or admission to medical school or graduate school. For this group, it was 46%. I do think that this number is low because this is the moment in time when they are leaving the university. And at that time, they still don't know quite what they want to do. They may be taking the summer. So I think if we were looking at this at, say, 1 year after graduation or 2 years after graduation, we'd see something a little different. So I'm just going to mention briefly about our summer research immersion program. We've pretty much taken the 2nd and 3rd semester courses of our FRI program and offered them in the summer. So the students are taking 2 4-credit CURE classes. We are able to receive some revenue funds from these courses. Whatever's left after the university and SUNY takes a cut of it. It's over 10 weeks. It does offer a way to give our research educators some extra service summer salary. And we've usually been able to offer 2 to 3 of our research streams every summer, so about 20 students. And really the target here has been students who have trouble getting a research opportunity on campus. They may have a low GPA, so faculty aren't willing to take them on. They may be transfer students who didn't have an opportunity to do FRI. And we're only reaching a fraction of the students with FRI. And we've also collaborated with the NSF RAU programs on campus. Every Friday of this summer program, we do professional development programming with them. So FRI was really the start, and we took that and we really built off the success and momentum of FRI. And we started implementing these other cures across campus. And really our big goal, and it's a lofty one, is that we want every undergraduate STEM major to take a cure, preferably early in their college career before they graduate. But really we want them to have the opportunity to take at least 3 cures. And so that's kind of what we're working towards. So in the biology department, I'm going to talk about Bio 115 on the next slide. We've transitioned our intro biology lab into a cure, but we've also transitioned some advanced lab cures Our genetics lab is a cure, and that enrolls about 200 students each semester. Our molecular biology lab, which biochemistry and biology majors take, has been converted to a cure. And then the last is another example, plant ecology was converted into a cure. That's a small enrollment class, probably about 20. But that class, since its implementation a few years ago, has produced at least 3 peer-reviewed publications. And this is on the bottom is a screenshot of one of those publications. But to get a little bit into Bio 115, this is a course that over 800 students go through each year. So they have about 400 in the fall, 400 or so in the spring. The theme has changed a little bit over time. They first started out looking at soil composition and microbial communities. Then they started going to plants and looking at microplastic contaminants, and that's what the picture is up top. But it started in fall of 2018, and the FRI director at the time and myself helped develop some of the materials, taking what we learned from FRI. And in terms of how this is staffed, the university has a lecturer / coordinator that teaches the lecture section. And then we have grad TAs teaching each of the lab sections. So you can probably imagine that those grad TAs are going to need some extensive training on how to teach a cure. And then we also have undergrad TAs that have gone through the course and are acting as teaching assistants for that course. There has been one publication come out of this course. 2 students, after taking the course, stayed on with the lecture and looked at all the data that had been collected, and they were able to publish that research. Just a little bit on how they've set this up. They start the first almost half of the semester, they learn how to work in a team. They learn the equipment. At the beginning, I know they were using a lot of the vernier sensor probes. And then they go into developing a hypothesis in their teams, and then designing the experiments that are going to be needed and testing all that and doing their research project. And then they also are presenting a research poster at the end of the semester and a report. Then in chemistry, in chemistry, we have about 1,600 students go through the general chemistry courses, but we have 4 different tracks on campus. One for engineers, one for nursing, one for chem and biochem majors. So they took the course sequence for pre-health and science majors, pretty much everyone that's a science major except for chem and biochem, that track, and converted that into a cure lab. And they are planning to convert the rest as well. So by having intro bio and intro chem as cures, we're likely going to be approaching that first goal of every student taking at least one cure early in their college career. And then there are a couple of advanced cures in the chemistry department. A little bit more about Chem 106. They're using the theme of chemistry of environmental water quality. And the great thing is we have a nature preserve on campus. I think it's over 100 acres, but 20 acres of it is a wetlands area. And so they've been going out to the nature preserve, collecting water samples and analyzing those using vernier sensors, which are relatively affordable. And they enroll about 800 students a year. And they have the same setup where they have a lecturer, a coordinator, and then grad TAs teaching the course. There's some additional kind of standalone cures. I just brought up a couple to mention. In in other departments across campus. And so this is just some thoughts on those in case you do have alignment with any of these. I'd be happy to put you in contact with the instructors for these. So then kind of still building on that momentum of the FRI program and these other cures, the campus got really excited about, can we do this with humanities and social sciences as well? And that became the SOURCE project on campus. So this is a 2-semester sequence of cures, and it's run through the Undergraduate Research Center. It started 3 years ago with 75 students, and it's now up to 150 students. It's modeled off of FRI. The big difference with this one is that the courses are taught by tenure track faculty instead of the research educators that we have that are dedicated to FRI. These are faculty that are teaching the SOURCE project courses instead of, say, the course they would have taught for their department. Here's example of the research streams for this year. And I'll go a little bit deeper just to give you an idea of some of the questions that the students are looking at in these streams. But these are all mostly tenure track faculty. You can see on the right is a visiting assistant professor. I also know that both Dr. Kim and Dr. Dement are both also chairs of their department, and they're involved in this SOURCE project. And this is a program that the university wants to continue to expand. So I'm going to go through this quickly, but I wanted to give you some things to think about when you're considering implementing cures. And like I said, you'll have access to all these slides, so they're definitely things you can come back to and think about. But I just want to kind of catalyze some of that thinking. So one of the first things you're going to need is some institutional buy-in, you know, and thinking about what are the motivations. Most of you here are faculty. What are your motivations for doing a cure? What are your concerns? Are there ways to work around those concerns? But usually you're probably going to have to convince administrators that this is a good idea, whether it's your department chair or the provost or dean, or, you know, and really, if you focus on what are some issues across campus that you could fix with a cure or a cure program, is there some type of low-hanging fruit that you can target? And they're usually going to be, those administrators are usually going to be worried about what are the costs, what benefits is it going to have to the university? You know, besides just student engagement, what else, like, are we going to see increased graduation rates? Are we going to see increased interest in coming to the university? So these are some things you can think about. Are there any institutional priorities that you can tap into? And I'll show you an example of that on the next slide. What are the barriers to making this change? I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are all things to really think about as you're wanting to implement these types of courses and programs. So this is example, Binghamton has a number of strategic priorities, and so FRI and cures aligns perfectly with our strategic priority number 2. So Binghamton has a target that by 2026, 100% of undergrad students will have the opportunity to be involved in a high impact practice. And what they're considering high impact practices are things like internships, research and creative activities, community engaged learning, study abroad, capstone courses. And so FRI and cures are helping the university reach this target. And hopefully we will. So, that's an example of how to tap into the priorities across your campus. And you can look at if your campus has strategic priorities outlined, or the mission and vision, or is there some type of gap on your campus, some type of need that you can fill? Another thing you're going to want to think about is funding and sustainability. So who's going to teach the courses? I will tell you, being completely transparent, in terms of the FRI program, our instructors are over 90% of our budget, because their salaries. So that is the major part, but also the supplies and the equipment. Is there equipment somewhere on campus that's already there that you can repurpose? Do you have the ability to charge a course fee? So we do have that ability here. For second and third semester, when the students are in the lab for FRI, we charge $150 per student, but it doesn't touch the cost of the supplies and equipment in most cases. This may not be the case with a small cure, but it may be the case with a large enrollment cure, or a program like FRI. Who's going to help administer the program? Who's going to be in charge of all the day-to-day logistics? Who is going to be responsible for program assessment? That is a hole right now for me. So, who's going to order the supplies and the equipment? And so that's something important to think about. Also, if you are doing all this research, it's going to be important to disseminate it. Do you have funds for students to travel to conferences? Do you have funds for the people teaching these courses to be involved in professional development activities? Another thing I will mention is the different models that we have on our campus. So FRI uses a model where we have research educators, where Source Project uses a model where we have tenure track faculty teaching the courses. In terms of the research educators, these are non-tenure, no promotion pathway. They're temporary positions that are on one-year contracts. Some of this is due to our union titles that are available. But that creates insecurity or instability for these individuals. And so many times we lose them to tenure track positions after they've been with us for a couple of years. But there are great benefits. They're dedicated to FRI. We have developed this really rich learning community. They don't have a lot of competing responsibilities in other departments. Where on the other side, in terms of using tenure track faculty, they need approval from their department chair to teach these courses, or their dean, and that can sometimes be challenging. And the other thing is that many times the workload of a cure is greater than a traditional lecture course. And for many faculty, that isn't an issue because they're getting something else out of it. They're getting research productivity out of it. But it can sometimes be hard to explain why 2 4-credit or 2 3-credit courses, one that's a cure and one that's a traditional lecture course, aren't exactly equal to each other. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is partnerships. Partnerships are so important. And so for us, one of our biggest partnerships with FRI is admissions and enrollment management. They handle a lot of our recruitment process. They send out invitations to students. We're very involved in the student visits and open houses and all of that. This is a picture where we're actually featured. Our lab is featured on their virtual tour of the campus. And so they are really using FRI as a recruitment tool, and they've also fought for us when push has come to shove of whether or not this is an important program to continue funding. and they see the value in recruiting good students to our university. Academic colleges and departments, so we rely on them to allow our courses to count towards major requirements, which is very, very important for students. Our career center, we've partnered with them for professional development workshops for our students, things like how to put together your CV and feature FRI in it, how to ace your interview when you're going off and trying to get a job or an internship. And then our alumni office is really important in terms of tracking students. So that is where I will end. And looks like I have 9 minutes that I can answer any questions that you have. But yeah. Any questions?
So if you have a question, just go ahead and unmute. Jessica's also watching the chat, so you can type it in the chat. Marla, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I was just admiring the picture that you had before of the lab that you were showing and the facilities. And I just wonder, for when this started getting implemented, here, biology, molecular biologist speaking, did you already have these facilities available in teaching labs, or did you have to work your way to get a lab to look so great as the one you have in this picture? And if so, how long did it take you to get to this wonderful room?
So each lab was a little bit different. This particular lab, we had some startup funding from the state of New York that allowed us to renovate it. And by having that funding, the university was willing to give us the space. And luckily it was unused space at the time, which I know is not the case at many places. Not all of our labs look this beautiful, I'll be honest, but a lot of them do. The other thing we had going for us is that our science, when we were starting this program, our science buildings were old and they were on the list to be completely renovated. And so actually Bio 115, they started out, the first 2 years they were offered, they were in, like the dungeon of labs. And now they're actually across the hall from us, but they are now in a completely renovated space that the university planned on renovating and had the money from the state to renovate, but they knew that these were now the courses that they were going to be teaching. So they're set up in such a great way for teamwork. So like they have they don't have long benches, they have like little half octagons, but the staff teaching, or the instructors teaching Bio 115 were able to give the university information on how they wanted those spaces designed. So some of it was just timing worked out really well. And then other cases, we're still working in labs that aren't the greatest, or just using labs that they were using for other courses that have been converted to Cures now.
Megan,
Jessica?
go ahead.
I was wondering how much support a year do you think it takes internally from your administration, and how much comes in externally through grants and other things to make this program run?
So in terms of FRI, in the beginning we
I'm
had
sorry, Megan. I'm sorry.
What's that? Okay. So in terms of the FRI program, in the beginning we had a lot of grants. We had NSF grant to start one of our streams. We had a couple grants from the state, from SUNY. We had the HHMI grant, and that allowed us to purchase all the instrumentation and equipment. At this point in time, our program is completely funded by the university, and they've seen it as worthwhile of sustaining. We do have a larger percentage of out-of-state students in our program compared to the overall population. So that's been one way we've been able to justify it, because the out-of-state students are paying higher tuition. But really the outcomes and the support from undergraduate admissions and the use of it as a recruitment tool have really, the support of upper administration has been huge in sustaining this.
Do you have any sense, you know, not counting all the little things like departmental supply money and things like that, do you have any and people's reassigned teaching loads as far as hiring the research educators, supporting your office directly? Do you have any sense of how much that costs?
Like per year?
Yeah,
you're
per
talking?
year.
I feel like I don't have the number in my head. I'm
Oh.
gonna say $500,000 a year,
Okay.
but if I'm totally off, I will let you know.
Oh, okay. Well, that gives us at least some
But that's
sense.
300 students going through this.
Yeah, it gives us some sense of what type of scale we are dealing with, though. Your numbers for your departments, your freshman classes, things like that are actually pretty close to ours in some ways, and so it's helpful to know what it would cost. I'll just point out, you see in the question list, there's some concern over how much regulatory review your courses need.
So that's definitely, when I say partnerships are crucial with academic departments, going through the course proposal approval process and all that, and making sure that these count towards major requirements. And in that case, having FRI is likely reducing the costs that departments have, because these students would have been in their seats with their instructors and professors teaching the courses. Our courses do count, some of them count for Bio 115. Some of the FRI courses count for Chem 106, so those are less seats that they need to have in those courses. Also, I'll mention, in terms of Chem 106 and Bio 115, those large enrollment intro cures, the cost isn't that different from the traditional labs, because they would have had, really the only cost is that lecturer / coordinator. They likely didn't have that person before, but in terms of supplies and graduate TAs and everything like that, it's actually the same or less, because they did have both bio and chem. They had 2 semesters with labs attached to both semesters, and now they have 2 standalone lectures and 1 2-credit lab. So they actually need less grad TAs in the end to cover that.
Megan, do students that are participating in the FRIs have to get regulatory approval like IRB, IBC?
Yes, depending on the stream. So like our neuroscience stream, they use a rodent model. And so they all have to go through training, and the research educator has all the approvals for the protocol that they're using. Our public health stream, they're doing a lot of like surveying of people, students. So they usually, each team goes through the IRB approval process, which I think is a really great experience for them. And then of course, overall as a program, we've gone through IRB approval for all of our assessment.
And I know you briefly talked about the social sciences. Do you know, like, who all is also involved in your social science? Is the SOURCE program?
Yeah, it's the SOURCE program. There may be a couple like one-off here courses, but it's primarily the SOURCE project, and there's that right now is like 12 different courses.
Do y'all